right, guys, welcome to another episode of Alphawaves.
Episode number 21.
Oh,
yes,
episode 21.
21.
And today, were you gonna?
What?
You just said
No,
so
go on, carry on. Don't let me take you off your path.
Don't get in my way. I was in my flow. But yes, we have a very special guest with us here today. So it is a special episode. We have our good friend Adrian.
Hello.
Do you want to?
Adrian. Hi. Do you want to finish your sentence?
Literally, she's not trying to. Yeah, go on, Cam.
So I'm just having my limelight moment. But yeah, Adrian, tell us who you are.
Who am I?
Who are you? That's such
I-
a difficult question, isn't
A
it?
little bit, but it's okay. I'm Adrian. I am a producer of theatre arts festivals, working with young people who are disadvantaged and don't get the chance to access theatre the same way that a lot of other people do, i.e. middle-class white kids. And yeah,
Going there early.
obviously.
We are
it's who I am.
starting
playing. Yeah,
strong
yeah.
when we're
I'm with it.
talking about legacies. But yeah.
Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
Yes.
Yeah, this episode we're going to be talking on legacies, which obviously can be a heavy topic sometimes.
I don't know why you're looking at me when you say that.
Why not? something you got to get off your chest.
Got to look at someone. But
Saying that, so yeah, let's start with you, Cam.
great. We'll
No,
start with me.
God,
But yeah.
yeah, no, we just wanted to touch on legacies. I think it's something that a lot of us think about but don't really vocalize enough on in terms of like how we view legacies, what we're doing actively to change legacies and where we come from. So it's a bit about what I wanted to talk on today. So yeah, since you're in your limelight moment, I'll let you kick it off.
And you're wearing lime as well. That's good. Yeah.
Yes, I was just thinking that. So yeah, I think it would be so interesting to first think about what legacy actually means to you. And when I think about a legacy or my legacy, it's so weird because I feel like initially you'd think about what you're leaving behind. But for me, it's more like what are future generations that come from me going to say when they think about me?
Okay.
Like, that's kind of how I think about legacy sometimes, like the impact that you're leaving, you know?
So you're still talking about what you leave behind, right?
Yeah. But also just like what kind of person are my future great grandkids going to think of me as, you know?
So being a good ancestor.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Being a good ancestor. That's how I kind of think about that.
And what are you doing actively to benefit or yeah, to have an impact on the legacy that you want to leave? What are you actively doing at this moment?
You know what? I'm actively working on myself. That is what I'm doing.
Interesting.
That's enough.
That is.
Don't make it sound like it's not enough.
How did you know?
I heard every single
The voice
beat
of
there.
reason fighting my corner.
Oh, you're so lucky
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
All right, cool,
Yes.
fair enough. I'll leave it there. I've been
Thank
told.
you. But I think that is important though. Like how many, people do you have who have left a legacy before you who haven't worked on themselves, and now you're picking up all of their qualities, all of their things, all of their consequences that have funneled through over the years,
But you see, like when you say working on yourself, are you still doing things intentionally that with an outlook on how it will look in the future? Or are you more concentrated on your present?
I think a bit of both, because when you are working on yourself, you are thinking of a future who's going to be there and be able to push this forward, but then it also impacts your present. Yeah, go on.
It depends how you see time. Like if you like the present and the future are very much like the same thing.
Okay.
The past, the present, and the future, because we're here now from all that's happened before, collecting all that stuff, and then the future is right now. Because the next second is the future.
There's
right?
the future, yeah, I get it.
So working on yourself, and I remember writing a poem with a friend once, because what we do, not this friend. I've done this technique with Cam before, but my
I was
friend
about to get so excited, like.
it's not you. I wrote a poem with my friend Molly, and she wrote a line, I wrote a line. One of the lines I wrote was, "I'm my mother's child, I'm my grandmother's child. The healing begins when I forgive those who came before me."
Right.
But I say that to say that in terms of legacy, I am them as well. I am carrying their stuff, but I'm also very much them. They live in my DNA, so I'm able to heal what they couldn't, because I carry so much of them inside me.
Okay.
I love that.
But do you think you're able to do that without having those conversations with them? Because you know there's some people that don't get a chance to have that conversation and they just hear stories.
I think it's about so when you say stories, like, it's about rewriting the story and just doing new things. So I can, if my mum wasn't able to be the person who did what was best for herself, I can do that in my relationships with friends or partners. Or
As in,
else.
do what's best for yourself.
Yeah. Whether that's like leaving that friendship behind or setting boundaries that my grandmother, my grandfather couldn't set in their lives, because they even use the word boundaries. Jamaicans don't have any boundaries, really, to be honest. But yeah, they couldn't do it then. I can do it now, and that heals before and after.
So how much of it is like you've mentioned doing for yourself, yeah? How much of that goes into what you do for others?
What do you mean? Sorry.
So like, say, I don't want to use your parents as an example, so I'm just going to say parents in general, yeah? Say there's parents in general that they've had to sacrifice giving, like, all right, so you know there's some kids that they have everything but they don't have like the love and the affection from parents, yeah? But in the parents' mind, they're saying, oh, I need to be able to provide. So they spend a lot of time doing that. But it's like you've almost done something. It's kind of for yourself, but it's for your child as well, right? But it's not really what your child wanted from you, especially at that early stage. So it's almost like, how do you separate doing something for yourself and for others, and how much of that plays an impact on your legacy? Because you might be doing something that you think is going to be beneficial for them in the long term, but how they look back on it is like, oh, but you wasn't around.
Well, I guess so many parents don't even talk to their children in a way that they recognize their child has autonomy and a mind to decide for themselves what they want for their lives. So if you aren't listening to your 3-year-old saying, I want this for myself, and you don't see that as important, then you're going to constantly put your own perspective above theirs. But you have to, it's important to recognize children as coming with deep knowledge and deep wisdom about themselves and the world, to be able to tell you, hey, you might want to leave me loads of money. I don't care about money anymore. Capitalism is not in my DNA in the same way it's in yours. Can we actually try and plant some trees? Can you please get me some land back home so I can go back one day? Can you teach me how to set up companies and businesses so I can help those who are in need? But yeah, it's just about listening to those who are coming in.
Of course. But I think like it's an easy thing that happens commonly is like somebody, I just used the parent example for a base level, but somebody can have an outlook on what they want their legacy to be, as in, like I said, I want you to know that I've done everything for you, I left money for you, etc. But the person that comes after you is like, looks back at it like, yeah, you gave me money, but what I wanted, how I remember you is somebody that was never there. And that almost becomes your legacy.
That's why I feel everyone should work on themselves, because we're sorry, I'm still recovering.
We gave you like 5 minutes with no talking. What's going on?
It just marinated. But yeah, I was saying with that, I feel comes two things. If you have parents who didn't really experience much wealth in a material sense, and that's what they focused on, and as a result, in the example that you've given, that children now have, those children are lacking in affection. That is why it's so important for every new step in that long line focuses on themselves so that they can continue healing themselves, working on themselves. And instead of carrying bitterness with how, you know, this is what I wanted and this is what I got, but a more forward thinking way of being, like, okay, this is what I'm going to give, then you'll continue healing your, you know, the generations that came before and who are coming after. And also you will continue leaving a legacy that's buildable, I feel.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it's I don't know.
What's your concern?
It's not a concern. It's just that I know that like a lot of the time, what you see and how someone else looks at you is complete polar opposites.
But that's why you have to communicate as well with the people in your family and your kids. Like, you need to know, is what I'm doing translating to you, you know? And if it's not, how can we make it translate?
True. But it's not, again, I don't think it's a blanket over everybody in your life. Like, some people will look at you one way, other people will look at you another way. It's just about what matters almost the most.
So are you're a father, right?
Yeah.
So is your focus about making sure your child has enough money when they're older? What is your focus when it comes to legacy?
It's not so much the money. Money is part of it, but it's more for him to, I don't think that's the legacy part. That's like planning, because my planning is for him to have options, as much options as possible. With whatever he wants to do, I'm able to help him with that. The legacy that I want to leave is the fact that he knows that I was always part of his life. Everything that he wanted to do, I was supported him. That I've shown him as many options as possible, showing him how to live in a way that you don't need to be scared of what society tells you. Like, listen to your own self, what you want to do. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to put in his mind, more than, oh yeah, there's a bunch of money here for you. Because I'd rather be remembered as somebody that impacted him more than just financially. So
with legacy, I feel like it's about what you do for yourself and what they watch you do. So when I'm doing a project at work and I'm creating a project, for example, where there'll be 6 young people coming in to do a music project,
right.
And all these young people have some kind of disability, whether they're neurodivergent, ADHD, autism, whatever. And there's a legacy that has to come from this project, which means that it can't just be in the room, record the songs, whatever, and then it's done. The legacy is about, okay, cool, it's going to go out on some website and a load of people are going to hear this and listen to this and experience it. And then maybe these young people can come back a year later and talk to the next cohort because they're the legacy. So I feel like with you, it's about pouring into yourself so your son can see, oh, you have options. You've given yourself pathways out of situations. And he has that example to go, okay, cool, I can do it for myself.
Yeah.
And of course you teach him how you did it, but it's about you
actively doing it as well. No, I agree 100%. And I think I've always said that, because I make music as well, right? And I've always said that within my music, I've always wanted to have a message, so that I've kind of created my own narrative rather than, because I've, like, the environments that I've come from, I've seen people have these bright ideas but not manage to see it out for whatever reason. Yeah, either their life's cut short or their time free's been cut short, etc. And in those moments, it's always kind of like, it's touching, because I know that they wanted to do so much more, but now they've just gone down as a street legend, let's say, or whatever. And it's like, I know that that's not the legacy that they wanted to leave behind, but that's how they've been viewed. And that's scary to me almost, that some people don't get a chance to, like, display their own narrative for how their legacy is.
Heavy question. If you were gone today, what would your legacy be?
I think about it a lot. I do think about it a lot. And again, like I said, it's not a blanket. To some people, I think they'll look at me as some things. Like, my family will look at me, I believe, I hope anyway, that they will look at me as somebody that was always there and always tried to do more. There's other people that might look at me like, I don't know what they look at me, but yeah.
He tried to do more. That's legacy. I think there's more.
There is more. There probably is more. A lot more. A lot more. But I don't want to speak on how other people view it because I don't know for sure.
That's not your business. It really isn't.
Would you say then that a legacy in that regard is kind of your reputation? What kind of differs if we're looking at legacies in this kind of way? What differs your reputation from a legacy? Because I also feel like that does factor into it, but a legacy is also what you've left behind. Like, have you left a stepping stone, or have you left bricks that the next person's going to have to create a path out of? And that's the way that I kind of look at it. So with questions like, if you were gone today, what would your legacy be? I struggle with that answer because I don't feel like I've left a legacy yet. Do you know what I mean? I've left an imprint, but I haven't left, or what I would want to consider a legacy, that someone would be like, yeah, she came here and she did that.
I guess it's like not making your small things feel small. Like to you think you did a small thing, like it wasn't a lot, but you've got friends in your life who were impacted by your laughter and by your presence and by the advice you gave. There are words you said that have reverberated through people in ways that you don't know. There are words that you told people that when they wake up in the morning, they go, oh, but Cam would say this. Or Cam would encourage me in this way, or I need to be more like Cam. And I remember when Cam told me she would do this in the morning.
I love these little examples there.
You feel nice, right?
I know. I'm like, yeah, Cam. And that's what I think. Like in terms of a legacy, like how I said in the beginning, like what are people?
How you're spoken about when you're not.
Like how are people speaking about you? But I also understand what you're saying, Darren, that you can't control how everyone's looking at you. But your legacy isn't for everyone also.
How much of it is tied to achievements, do you think?
I don't know about achievements because I'm thinking about, when I say like the Cam who offers advice, they left a legacy. If I think about someone else who maybe just shared a word with me on the street, I don't know, that's impact and legacy. I don't know what the meanings of the words are in the dictionary. I don't know. But I feel like with a legacy, it's about how far that one thing runs. It's like a huge string.
Yeah.
So when you think about family legacy, it's because that thing's passed down, right? And when you give a word to someone, if that word is a seed that then becomes huge, then there's legacy there. Because it's affected someone where it's like, oh, one day someone told me, oh, make lemonade out of lemons, whatever, some cheesy quote. But that person now is a doctor and that's their mantra before they go into the surgery and they save lives. That's legacy.
Yeah, no, it's true. Because I feel like a lot of people do tie the two together, like achievements with legacy. But I think over time I've started to separate the two. Because I don't think... Because if I say there's things that I've started today, if I don't get to see it through in my lifetime, but it continues into my son's lifetime and then he continues it, etc., then the legacy started with me. So even though I didn't get to achieve it and see it through, it still started the legacy. That's why I've started to separate the two, whereas before I was so fixated on doing this before my time's up.
I think that's where I'm at now, you know, and I never thought of it as in like something that you leave behind for someone else to then pick up, you know?
I'm just trying to find a tissue in your bag. And I couldn't find it.
This is why they say don't go in girls' bags.
Right, so you could have said that. You see why I asked now?
Because I thought you just rummage around until you
Why would I
find
do that in your bag?
But you know what's so bad is I know that because I wouldn't do that either.
Right.
Like just rummage around.
No, that is just unnecessarily complex for no reason, Cam. You could have said it.
And that's my legacy. Complicated.
I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's all good.
Yeah, no, that's okay. What was I saying though? I was saying I want to say something else.
Go on.
If someone leaves behind something that isn't so great, you know, like, yeah, something that isn't so great, would you still call that someone's legacy?
Yeah, you have a good and bad legacy, right? I guess. I keep thinking of Hitler. I'm so sorry. That's a really bad legacy. Really bad legacy. But look how
Yeah.
far it reverberated. Look at
Yeah.
neo-Nazis and fascism
Yeah.
and America.
And how it's still present today.
Yeah.
That's a good example, actually.
So that's a bad legacy.
Mm.
But done really well. But really,
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah, it's impactful.
Yeah.
Good or bad, depends which side of the fence you sit on. Some people look at it as a good legacy if
I
they
don't talk
agree
to
with
those
it.
people.
You know.
But yeah.
But yeah, that's
No,
true.
it's true. It's very true.
That's
So, like,
true.
looking at your life, both of you, obviously,
Mm.
is there noticeable things that you can see from people that's come before you that you could?
Family or like
Let's start with family.
What was the all like? Like, what were the other options?
I'm thinking about the legacy of teachers
Okay.
in my life.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And what they gave to me for sure. Like, there's a teacher called Dr. Sarju Patel, who he was a science teacher who joined us from like this other school. He's Dr. Sarju. He didn't need to teach at Acton High School
At all. I was
at
like,
all. But he came and he was really trying to drum into us like discipline and like caring about ourselves and how we can want more for ourselves. And there was one science lesson. He didn't do science. He played us this YouTube video called the last lecture, I think it's called, or something. And it's from this guy who was about to die, who had terminal cancer. And he was talking about dreams and following your dreams and how you should like how small things as a kid, like those things should be followed, and then where he ended up, and now he's gonna pass away. He's not alive anymore. The lecturer, and nor is Dr. Sarji Patel. He died very soon after that.
oh wow.
Like a couple weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
and we all mentioned how like why the hell did these two things go together? But yeah, it was a tragic accident that he passed away in. And it's a legacy because of the intentionality of like, we're not going to do things the way we did it before. I'm going to give you this for your science lesson. And you're going to lead the class. And we were all like, is that it? So like, no chemicals, no nothing.
No
Yeah, that's it.
chemicals.
Yeah.
Wow. But look at that
yeah.
though, because it's been so many years later and it's something that you're talking about today, you know? And I wonder how many other students who were in that class that still think back on that moment and that event and how it may have impacted them.
Absolutely. So do you have any teachers that you think had a good impact on you?
Yeah. There are. I can't think of them right now. But I'm just thinking of the ones that I didn't really like too much. But I guess they're teachers in their own right, you know, as in like they taught you something through that experience. Like I remember I had a teacher who really doubted me and kept doing my predicted grades lower. And I was really frustrated about it because I was like, how am I supposed to get my UCAS points, you know?
She's racist.
No, it's because I failed the first year.
Okay,
so.
it's your fault. Sorry.
But I only got a D. Like it wasn't that deep, you know. that was unplanned. But yeah, it wasn't that deep. I only got a D. But because of that, she kept predicting me a D, and I was like, "What uni is going to look at this and think, yeah, we'll take that?" And I kept giving her essays that I'd written, but she didn't mark them, so she couldn't see how much I'd improved. And then I complained about it so much and forced her to predict me something higher. And then I ended up getting a really good grade at the end. And that taught me to just trust yourself. And if someone's saying you can't do something, you just really can do it. Like it's in your hands. And that was a good experience.
Your personal legacy. I guess. Yeah, it's like those things that like drive you to be better.
Yeah.
So it's like, thanks for that, miss. Like,
Yeah,
thanks for
literally.
giving
But I
me
don't know
what I
how that
needed.
ties into a legacy, but it has made me wonder that do you have like a legacy? Is it possible to have a legacy that you leave just for yourself, you know, like a personal legacy that no one else really knows, that includes all these moments where you proved something that you were able to do.
That's interesting.
Like I'd not really considered that before, you know, like your own personal achievement and legacy, and how, you know, your own personal growth.
Do you ever like talk to your past self and say like, thank you for all you gave me, and like you gave me so much, and I understand why you went through what you went through? That's like personal legacy. Like you're looking back and going like, because you did this in the past, I'm here now.
Yeah.
So you gave yourself what you needed.
Exactly.
Like when I need to start the gym so bad.
You do.
Hey.
No, not like that.
Hey.
I mean, you do, because it feels so good. It's just amazing.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Yeah. That's.
That definitely didn't come across like that.
You didn't say it like that.
I was like, you really, really. No, I meant it just feels really good. And even that for me is a legacy that I did. You know, I actually did a proper gym session, and how that's a personal achievement.
You did one.
Yes, this week one.
This is crazy.
One and counting,
crazy.
actually.
How much? What does it take for something to become a legacy? Like, what do you have to put in? Like, how big does it have to be for you to consider it a legacy?
Me personally, it's difficult because there's some, like you said before, there's small things that somebody could do that could have a major impact on you. But on the grand scheme of things, I feel like something that impacts you the most is looked at as a bigger legacy. Like, so I feel like a lot needs to go into it for myself personally when I'm looking inwards. But when I'm looking at other people's legacy, obviously I don't know the ins and outs and all the intricate things that they had to go through and get through. But when I'm looking at myself personally, I wouldn't be happy with just the small things. Like, I always feel like there's so much that I need to do to leave behind such a great legacy.
I guess it's like it sounds like you feel like effort is the most important thing.
And I think it's partly because of everything that I've been through. Like, there's been so many different pivotal moments in my life that I feel like I've learned so much lessons from it that I've got so much to give and leave behind from those lessons. Maybe if I went through less, I wouldn't feel like there's so much for me to give, if that makes sense. But I think that plays a major part in it.
I love that phrasing, that there's just so much to give. Like, it just feels and sounds so abundant, you know, to think about it in that way, that looking at your life experiences is not something that's happened to you or something, you know, like that, but it allows you to give more.
Even in that, saying that came from a change in a way of thinking. Because when you're going through things, you naturally have that, why is this happening to me thing? Until you go through so much that you're like,
it's happening again.
Like,
you know?
something else is happening. There must be a reason why this is happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost for me to make this story.
That's the thing, isn't it? When you get control of the story, then the legacy gets like power. It's not about like, things just happening to you. It's about going like, no, this happened because of this, and it's leading me to this.
100%.
I'm doing this. Rosa Parks sitting on that bus might seem simple. Not even simple. It was a hard situation, but she's tired and she's like, I'm not going to move. And I'm not going to let you say what you want to say to me. I'm going to do what I want right now. And that had a ripple effect. So it's about you going like, I need to just live intentionally right now.
No, of course.
Yeah, and going back to an earlier question, I think, was it you who asked it, Adrian, that what, or was it you, that what does your impact need to be big to? Yeah, I don't agree with that your legacy needs to be a huge thing in order to be a legacy. I think in order for something to be a legacy, in my opinion, it just has to carry opportunities for whoever is experiencing that, you know? Like, for instance, with what you just said about your science teacher, the opportunity that they gave you was an opportunity to think about something differently in a way that can open a whole new path that you wouldn't have considered unless you had that initial seed and thought. And I feel like that's what a legacy can be, you know? Like, even someone... I'm trying to think of a good example, but even something like someone getting a admin job and then working through that job where now they've reached a higher place, which is way higher than their parents could have ever gotten as, you know, whoever they are. That in itself is a legacy because you've now created a new opportunity for someone who's coming after you.
But sometimes I think there's no thought behind it. Sometimes I think things just happen in your life or happen to people. Like, think of George Floyd, yeah? He obviously didn't intend for what happened to him to happen to him, but it's had such an impact. Well, I don't know about in everybody's life because a lot of it was fake. But it for that moment in time anyway, let's say in that moment in time, it had such an impact that when you think of him, when you just hear the name, there's a legacy behind it. And that's something that's happened to him. It wasn't something that he created or something that he intentionally set out to do. It's something that's happened to him that sparked. It's hard to say sparked a change because at that moment it looked like it was sparking a change, but it's America, innit? So it's America, innit? So,
but that's the thing as well, like the legacy that you leave, when that people leave after death as well, and how things echo after death. Like in Islam, you can still like have a legacy after death, because I saw there was a rapper who passed away and they were raising money so that they could build some wells somewhere, and that's meant to like help you in Judgment Day as well, which you're still adding to your good list by like having your name attached to this, and like because your name's on it, basically like it's contributing to your legacy. So I guess it's also like what lives on after you die, what echoes on after you die, so that your name is still got a good legacy to it.
I love that word echo, you know, because I feel like that kind of ties in so nicely with what a legacy is. Like, what echo are you leaving behind? And yeah, that was my only comment. Yeah. You're both staring at me and I was like, that I just really like the word.
Fair enough, Cam. Do you think that everybody needs to leave something behind, or like a legacy? Like
I think everyone does leave something behind, which is why it's important to leave behind something good.
That's why I don't agree with the effort thing of like you have to do something hard to like leave a legacy, because it's not about. Some people do that. So, like there are legacies that are big because you put some fire behind it.
Yeah.
And there are some people who. There are babies who came to the world, breathed, and they left a legacy, and then they died. Sorry for saying it like that.
No, but it's impactful, you know? Like, it's true.
And they don't know what they came in here to do, but they came in and they just existed in a breath, in a few breaths. And then after they were gone, other things happened, whether it's a charity or whether like things were fundraised or like more awareness was brought to something. So it's not about the effort, it's about like just being able to exist well.
Yeah, I think it's about choices. Like, are your choices creating a legacy that someone behind you is going to be thankful for, or someone behind you is going to be, great, now I need a therapist? You know,
like
the thing.
You mentioned someone behind you, yeah? Obviously, I know you haven't got children. Have you got children?
No.
Right, so you two don't have kids, yeah? How much do you think about the future, not yourself, like anything that comes after you?
So often, I have to be honest. Yeah, really,
you've got
really
your siblings
often.
as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Obviously, you got your siblings as well. But cause the reason I'm asking that is because I had this thought in my head of legacy with siblings. I've got a younger sister, older brother. But it kind of shifted once I had a child. Like, that became everything before he was born, I would say, was my legacy with my family almost. That's my thoughts. The moment he was born, he creating a legacy that for myself, in relation to him, became priority. So that's why I was just wondering, like, if there was a shift, but
no, it's interesting you say that, because I do also feel the same with my siblings, and the feeling that you described is a feeling I can't relate to yet, having not yet had kids. But as I go through certain moments that I'm experiencing, I always ask myself, who do I want to be in front of my future kids in this moment, because everything is led by example. So who do I want to be? So even small things like confronting well a manager at work or something like that, or doing something or speaking, like these are things that if I want my kids to learn this stuff, like my future children, then I need to be that way now. And I think because, every family has their struggles and blah, 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 I think I just kind of have it so vividly in my head, a comparison of how I've spoken about people who have come before me in comparison to how I would want people to talk about me when I'm in that position as like an ancestor and as a parent, a grandmother. Like, are you going to be spoken about favorably, like you really helped set us up for life, or are you going to talk about them like, you were an obstacle that I had to move through in the first part of my life?
This is why I'm scared to have kids. I want kids, but I'm scared to have kids because I don't want to. You can't control how people see you. And undoubtedly your kids will definitely see your flaws louder than you might have seen them. I see my dad's flaws big. I see my dad's great things as well. But like it's a funny thing in our family where I can tell him like, you keep doing this thing of like not whatever his flaw is, right? And it's only because I'm his son and I've lived with him and grown up with him that I'm able to tell him like, look, Dad, you need to be able to take criticism better than that. Like, and he's like, oh, okay, fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the legacy is not always going to be about them seeing all the positive, glowing things about you. It's about how you can also stand in your crap and own that. And that's a legacy as well. Like, oh, she knew who she was.
Yeah. She knew who she was. And also she had the compassion to be who she is and allow me to be who I am. I feel like that's the important thing, like how much space are you making is the question that I feel like it's important to ask.
So I just started thinking about what my eulogy would sound like. Because when you're talking about legacy, it's like, okay, so your legacy is it's all going to be packed into your eulogy.
No, literally, you're saying the same thing that I was thinking, because well, I didn't want to say it because the way I was thinking was a bit more on a sadder terms. Like, it's just, I'm just thinking of examples in my life. Like, for instance, again, not to go back to my previous example, but to go back there, like I've seen young kids pass away, right? And his mother remembers him as this great child, and that's the way that she looks at him. But then there's other people that will look at him as the enemy almost, right? And it's like, in those moments, how much can you really take in what other people say and how you look at people? Because realistically, it's how they impacted you. It doesn't really matter what that person says over there if you've been such a great impact on my life.
So it's not just one legacy, it's multiple
It's
legacies.
multiple, right?
So it's about recognizing that legacy isn't one thing. It's multiple things. Like my legacy with certain friends is not going to be amazing. They're going to remember the person that ran away. Yeah.
I've never really thought about it that way, that you do have multiple legacies with every person that you cross paths with.
How much attention do you actively pay to people's legacy around you?
Honestly, I don't.
Never, right?
Never.
I don't. And
but I do think about the impact you have on me. I'll send you posts all the time of like, send that post to the friend that makes you happy in the morning.
Yeah, but I consider you as part of my legacy. Do you know what I mean? Like, if there's people that I no longer speak with, or have a certain opinion of me, that who has an opinion of me as as an enemy type of person or whatever, then they're not part of my legacy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because my legacy is what I'm actively doing to change the path for the people that I care about, or to impact their path, you know. So I don't know, actually, if I fully agree with that. I think there is a difference between like legacy and impact and reputation. And although they tie into it, I think your legacy is relative to who you're leaving that legacy for. Does that make sense?
Kind of, but
Kind of, but no.
No, I get what you're saying. Legacy is basically the umbrella that everything
It's just
falls
so
under.
much pressure to me, like I have to leave. For your dad, so the pressure's kind of like automatic, and you kind of have to deal with it. Whereas I'm like, I want to
who am I
opt
even
out.
doing this for?
Yeah, like I kind of want to opt out of the pressure of having to leave a legacy for someone. But I try and do good as much as possible, so that it's an automatic legacy building thing. If I can pour into you and you were able to be advised by me in a way that changed the course of your understanding of life, great, but I didn't do that on purpose. I wasn't trying to leave a legacy. That's kind of narcissistic.
That's what I'm saying. Some of it is like stuff that just happens.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time you don't even realize when people are watching you. If you're, like you said, as long as you're not too self-absorbed, but there's people watching things that you do and how you handled certain situations. And I'm not saying necessarily that plays a part in your legacy building, but it's part of how you're remembered. Like, he dealt with that this way. So, because even like siblings, I know that I've done things without thinking of what I'm doing and how it's impacting people. But then your sibling might turn around and say, "Oh, I'm inspired by how you dealt with that," but never vocalize it to you. But they've watched and seen it, and that's played a part in how they deal with stuff. And it's almost kind of like traditions. Family traditions is technically a legacy that's come from somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of that.
What's your heritage?
Caribbean. As in which countries in the Caribbean? St. Lucian.
Does St. Lucia do nine night?
Yeah.
So do you know what nine night is? Do you want to explain nine night?
Basically, when somebody passes away, it's like this almost like a celebration of life, right? Before, some people do it before the funeral, or most people do it before the funeral. Most people, like before the funeral. You have the celebration for 9 nights, and then the funeral.
Okay, so it's a celebration for 9 nights of their life.
It's
usually
normally
in the person's house.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's normally in their house or their mother's house.
And it's usually like loads of food, loads of family, music. Depends on like the tradition of family. If they're very Christian, then there's like hymns and prayers and all that stuff, and food. Always food. And if they're less religious, then it might be closer to like where it originally came from, which is like African tradition as well. There's a lot of spirituality around, like on the 9th night, the person's spirit would pass through. And there's things you have to do on the 9th night, like move furniture around and all that stuff. But I mention it because that's a legacy of like, we are preserving this person's memory in a way that if we don't remember their life, we'll remember the 9 nights that we had, where we collected everything into one place. And let's gather everyone in so we can concentrate all that energy and make sure their legacy is strong.
That's so interesting. I love that. And I love that it's like, is it intentionally a celebration? Like you go there to celebrate this person's life? Usually
a celebration. It depends how young they were as well.
And the circumstances. That's so interesting to me because it parallels a little bit with what we do in Indian culture. So when someone passes away, you kind of lay white sheets around the house of the person, and the door is always unlocked. And that's a period of time up until the funeral where anyone can come in but to grieve. And there's always food, there's always people there, there's always family there. It's to make sure that, you know, the people who are closest who are grieving and suffering have people around them, and that, and you know, people are always bringing food so that they looked after, and yeah, but it's a lot more. It's really not a celebration. Like, it is a very sad time. It's like a time for actively grieving. So yeah. But it's
no, of course you get grieving. They grieve, but
I think it's definitely about flowing alcohol sometimes as well. Like, just have fun, like just release it a little bit. There's dancing at some 9 nights, like there's drummers. In Jamaica, I've seen like drummers
Wow.
Not me personally being there. I've seen it
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I've seen drummers and dancers
Yeah.
at a 9 night before.
Yeah.
Which
But
feels like
similar,
celebration.
like it depends, like if it was a really old person who was suffering, then that period of time before the funeral can be a little bit more joyful.
Mm-hmm.
So it does all depend on circumstance.
But with things like that, do you both see yourselves carrying it on?
What, 9 nights? I really want a 9 night. I want to make sure my family do one for me. There are certain traditions that I really want continued. I really want loads of food. I really want Caribbean food at my... Why am I talking about my funeral?
No, but I didn't even mean your funeral. I just meant when you're the elder statement of your family and there's someone else in your family that passed away that's close to you.
So we did it recently for a family member. We had a 9 night, but it was online because there's people... This family member was originally from Jamaica, came over here, lived here for a long time. So like it was online for the sake of those who are overseas. But I'd definitely continue it for those who like live here for sure and who were born here and raised here and have their friends here. I think it's important.
Is there anything, without getting too personal, choose what you want to say, is there anything from your family that you don't want to continue as part of your legacy? You can just say yes.
Yeah. Just yes.
Absolutely.
Do you want to name the thing?
Yes. Anger. I feel like, and avoidance. I feel like those are two very big things that I've seen, not just in my family, like my immediate family, but across my whole family.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is stopping with me for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a thing with parents going, I'm not your friend. I'm not one of your little friends. I was like, well, if you're not my friend, you never will be my friend. Don't try and be my friend when I'm 18, 19. It's too late.
Exactly. Way too late.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because that's my thing. Like, my mom's never said that to me, but there's been certain times in her life where her actions have kind of been like, it's okay to be open to me. And because obviously Caribbeans, a lot of the time it's that's big people business. Stay out of big people's business, yeah? But sometimes that's something that I want to change because, like, again, like things that you go through show you that if it was handled differently, we might have had a different outcome at the time. And it's only from getting with my girlfriend that I realized that how open her family are in talking about almost every aspect of their life with each other. So they know what's going on here, and there. I wouldn't want it like to the scale that they have it, but
no boundaries.
Yeah, pretty much no boundaries. But I wouldn't want it to that scale. But I would want it I would want to change it from where it is now in my family, where it's like secrets and just like be a bit more
privacy.
Yeah. Be a bit more
Privacy's
open.
okay. It's just like not every day hide big family secrets from everyone. Sometimes find a way to talk about it with the little kids and find a way to like mention it and recognize that you'll be welcomed in with love instead of like the judgment. I think in families as well there's a big fear of judgment and being pushed out and blacklisted when you're the black sheep of the family. So yeah, like I would like to foster a new generation of the family that is happy to say, hey, I'm not feeling my best self right now. Can you hold me as I am, as the ones who love me?
100%. I think there's nothing worse than like when a relative passes or something, and then that's when you find out the truth.
Yeah.
There's even relatives that's passed, and it's only when they passed that I found out what their real name was.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
I was calling you something completely different your whole life. Like, it's crazy.
But that's different because that's a pet name. That's like the name that's like affectionately given.
No, 100%. But it'd still be nice to know your real name.
It'd still be nice to know, government. But we are family. But also, I think with that thing about privacy too, I think it's also important to have openness with the everyday things, not just like the big family secrets, but like to be able to look at your family member and know what's going on in their life.
Of course.
Or even to look at your family member and think, I'm able to tell them what's going on in my life when I'm ready to, and you can hold that, whatever private space you need for as long as you want or need to, but you always know that you have a family member to be open with and say that stuff to you. or any stuff, you know.
A lot of it, though, you have to be understanding is that people live through different times.
Yeah.
So what was acceptable for them may have changed.
Yeah, that lack of affection as well was a huge norm for them growing up. For my parents growing up, I think. My grandma was quite affectionate on my dad's side. But I think my mum's side, she's less affectionate. But I can see when you understand people's life stories as well, you understand where that comes from. And it's like, I understand you've been through quite a lot of trauma, haven't you? But I guess that's why Cam's always saying, like, I'm working on myself, so that it's not a case of like, oh, but I was traumatized. Yeah, but what did you do about it?
Exactly. Like when I think about my future, whatever's kids, whatever, I don't want it to be like this perfect, polished person and say, look, this is who we are, this is whatever. I want to say, like, it really wasn't always like that, you know, touch with that, I get to a good place to compare. But yeah, to say that it wasn't always like that. So wherever you are, know that it won't always be like that either, you know.
So how do you go about breaking these cycles that you see?
Well, you know what? I'm doing it with my youngest sibling, who's 16 years old. And I'm obviously a lot older than them. And the way that I was raised is very different from the way, not even that they're raised, but even the world that they're growing up in, you know? So for me, where I was grown up with being, you know, just very ethnic, like shouted out this or that, like you can't do that with the younger kids, you know? So me, as being a much older sibling and also a caregiver, I had to learn very quickly that shouting at them is not something that I can continue as part of this legacy. You would never do that, but they know not to do that. But it just didn't feel right, you know, and it didn't work. Like, it felt like, why am I carrying this on when it's just not, you know, the world is moving and you kind of do have to move with it.
So what's the difference between you being shouted at and them being shouted at?
Well, they're not shouted at, you know, like
have they ever been shouted at? Have you ever seen it happen?
Yeah, when they were much younger. But that's what I mean. Like, as we've all grown up, like me and my other brother, we are starting to learn, or I'm anyway starting to learn to communicate with my younger sibling more. Okay. So say, for instance, if they're not wanting to go to school or something like that, the typical reaction would have been like, what are you talking about? Just go to school, and make them do it. Whereas I've sat down and asked them, what is going on with you? Like, why are you punishing yourself here? What is actually, not like what is your problem, but what problem are you having that you can't do this? And we had a really, really nice conversation where they were able to open up to me about everything that was on their heart. And I think that's such a great thing to have, you know, because I never felt that way. Like, if my parents were talking to me about something, I always kind of carried secrets or felt like it was unsafe to say, this is what's going on. And I loved that, you know, the very next generation, like my youngest sibling, doesn't feel that way.
Would you ever go to family therapy with like your grandparent?
Oh
your
God,
parents?
no way. It became so vivid.
Yeah, like that would be a mess.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, never say never, but you have to accept where people are also. Like, just because I'm making these decisions doesn't mean that my other brother is going to make those decisions too. And it doesn't make them wrong for not making those decisions. You just have to accept where they're at on their journey as being the right place for them, you know? And I feel like therapy, having now done it myself, is no piece of pie. It is so hard. So if you just can't force someone into that experience.
You both mentioned like trauma, yeah? But like, if you don't know everything that somebody's been through, i.e. your parents, how do you then correct the trauma that they've been through?
Correct. I don't think it's a correct thing. I think it's making meaning of. Like, there's a misconception that you have to fix everything. It's not a fixing, it's a witnessing.
Right.
And a lot of healing comes from acknowledging a thing. and witnessing a thing and saying, I see this as what it is, and your pain is valid. A lot of our parents' trauma comes from being told, shut up, what you're feeling is not that bad. Get on with it. Live your life. Move to England. Get a job. Raise your kids. Don't complain about how poor you are. Get on with it.
Like, I've had it worse is almost the mantra that's been passed down and down.
So you feel like by doing that, you're able to break a generational curse?
By acknowledging stuff. Yeah, because so many secrets were what preceded me. So like secrets can feel really, they don't foster love. They're not a loving environment.
So without it, so if you never get to the bottom of all these secrets, do you think it's impossible to break a curse?
Why are you so nosy though?
I don't.
Why do you need to know everything?
Cam.
I think what that question is almost the same as asking, do you need an apology from someone or closure in order to forgive something?
Do you think so?
I don't think you do. Like, I think someone can tell you everything they've been through. You could know your whole backstory of your parent or your grandparent and still be bitter, you know? Like, it can still not bring compassion from you. And even knowing can feel like a burden. Like, why you lived your life and now you're making me live your life, you know? So I feel like the true breaking of the generational curse, as it always has done, comes down to you. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with anyone else. It comes down to how are you responding or reacting? What are you utilizing from this lifetime to heal yourself? And by healing yourself, because that's the thing that I, used to struggle with too. I was like, is it enough to just heal myself if the people around me aren't healing too? But it really is enough, you know? When you heal yourself, like a river, it will flow to the others, you know?
You think so?
They have to react to you differently. They have to move differently.
But
go on.
No, the reason I'm saying that is because if you've got siblings, right? And you've recognized something and you've worked on yourself, but they haven't, they have kids. Let's say they have kids and you don't. Does that not then continue? And they haven't worked on anything, but they've continued the cycle.
But I'm their uncle. And if I'm powerful enough, if I recognize myself as having enough power to influence, my nieces are very weird, and they're my kind of weird. I send camel videos all the time.
Literally,
yeah,
they are so weird.
That's not just my sister. Yeah, my sister's like, they're so weird. I'm like, yes, they're me. Like, so I can see that my influence definitely carries over in the spirit. I believe in the spirit, so I believe that it's not just a flesh thing. It's not just I have to speak to you in your ear thing. When I pray for them at night, that's still that's like sending that healing over to them as well. That does reach them, I believe, anyway.
No, I like that you say that, because a lot of the times, especially like Caribbeans, you have that grandmother that might pray for you, or whereas nobody else is doing it, but it's her words that carry through more. So I was just interested.
It's powerful, and all you need is one person to pray. You know, it's great if you have more, but that's all you need. And to add to that as well, in keeping with spirit and everyone kind of coming here with their own thing, I think it's important to recognize and also respect that just as you do, everyone else has the choice. Like, they have the choice. It may not be an easier choice or a harder choice, but everyone has the choice to work on themselves and improve on themselves, and you have to respect their choice even if you don't agree with it. So if you as one sibling have decided to start working on yourself and another doesn't, you can always help, you can always advise. The more you strengthen this yourself, the more of a source you become for someone to come to you when they're ready to, but you have to respect that they might not want to do that.
Do you know what's a good book to read if you ever do a part 2 of this podcast episode? All About Love by Bell Hooks. Have you heard of it? So Bell Hooks is an amazing woman. She's passed away recently. And in All About Love, she basically speaks about all the different types of love that can exist, like community, family, relationships. And when it comes to family in general, I think I stopped at that part for a bit because it was so like hard hitting. She speaks very plainly and simply, but she's sharp. And one of the things that stood out was that she said, like, if your parents beat you, that's not loving. And like, I feel like I grew up with like my parents saying, I'm doing this because I love you. And that being a generational trauma thing that is just enacted very casually. But if you lay your hands on a child, it's not loving. I believe so. Because there are different ways to talk to that being, that spiritual, very big, powerful being in that little body has a way that you can communicate with them other than laying your hands on them. If you did the same thing to an adult, they could punch you up. They have every right to punch you up if you slap them.
And that's what I was just going to say. Like, I feel like an adult who hits their child is a child in an adult's body, you know, because they're fighting with someone like that they think they're able to fight with, but then simultaneously not recognizing that they are an adult and they have to be the adult, you know?
Sometimes that can be the case.
Yeah.
Do you hit your son?
I haven't.
Not yet. Good, don't do it.
I was so silly when I used to get hit. I'd always run to the same spot, and it was the bathroom, which
Same.
was so dumb because you have nowhere else to go. And then they'd shut the door, and I'm like, damn.
But it's the only
This
room with a
time.
lock.
Huh?
It's the only room with a lock.
But I wouldn't lock it. I'd run in and leave it open
Why?
because I was dumb.
Wow.
No, it's crazy.
We're not doing that anymore. That generational trauma.
No. But I remember when my youngest sibling was born, and I was young at that point myself, and I was like, so when are you going to hit him then? Because you said you would, and you did it to us, so why aren't you doing it? But even that was quite an interesting thing to see, that my parents in their older, well, my dad never hears, but our parents in their older age.
But that's the thing, exactly that, yeah, because sometimes it's experience, because if you don't know any better, you're just going off what you've been seen, like, of what you've been taught. So if your parents was hit and then they've hit your older brother, but then after they've done that, they've realized this isn't what I want to be doing, and then they didn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You can't really look at them in a way for doing it to you once you understand why they done it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the fact that they stopped with my youngest sibling.
Because obviously being a parent's not easy. Sometimes it's just frustration. You don't know why this person is not listening to you.
Then work on yourself.
No, of course you have to, but I'm saying sometimes you just, I can understand
really
why somebody
hard.
will go back to
Their instinct.
Yeah,
and
like
also what's so hard is to not react like the way that you'd been taught. And I've really struggled with that with my youngest sibling, like, you know, being shouted at and spoken to like that, and being an annoying child and seeing your parents get frustrated. It was really difficult to not have that knee-jerk reaction with my younger sibling. But then also, when you don't have that, you feel like you're out at sea with nothing to row with, because you're like, well, what do I do then? Because you haven't seen anything different.
Yeah, those are the tools that being equipped with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
no,
lucky
that's true.
now that as we're growing in the world that we're in today, there's so many things online, but not everyone,
What things are you talking about?
you know, like just so many videos and
About-
posts and like,
Oh, like knowledge.
yeah, knowledge. yeah, exactly.
Do you know why you say that? 'Cause I laughed because you see the thing with online, there is something to support every narrative. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, because you could be thinking away and you go online and you can find somebody that thinks the same way as you, and you then think it's acceptable to be that way, but it's not necessarily a great thing. That's just how it is online.
True. But I mean more like parenting
Same thing.
videos,
Same
and
thing.
books.
If I strongly believed with beating my child, I can almost guarantee I can go online and find someone that goes on the same thing, and I'll think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but use your intuition and discernment, right? That's why in terms of legacy building and the ingredients of good legacy building, part of the ingredient is working yourself well enough to be able to suss out bullshit.
That's the underlying factor, but
And also, you know, in yourself, like, what do you
say
feel
that, but there's a
good
lot of lost
after-
people in
well,
this world. That's why I keep saying it. there's a lot of lost people in this world. That's why I keep saying it.
Yeah.
Like, we in this room, I believe, have enough understanding of ourselves to be able to speak from those viewpoints. But there are a lot of people that's lost and don't even know how to begin to look at themselves. Like, and those are the situations that we see. That's why not every generational curse has been broken across the world, because there are people that don't know how to look at themselves.
But not every generational curse is your problem.
Not talking about my problem. I'm talking about in general. I'm taking it past me right now.
But that's the thing. Like, when I feel like those kind of discussions, like talking about all the people that are lost in the world, for me, it feels kind of almost like, why even spend energy thinking about that? Because
so your sole focus is only on yourself.
But it has to be.
Yeah, and you call them lost, but they're not lost.
Because someone could be lost like for a while, and then one day something happens and a light bulb clicks, or they read something, or or there can be a series of events that lead them to somewhere. But that is their business. And
so on your day to day in your community, is your focus solely on yourself or on the community that you're in as well? Or the community that you're trying to better? Or is it just yourself solely?
I feel like it starts with you, and then what you do impacts your community, because it goes back to what you said before. Like, you just cannot control other people, and you will continue to hurt yourself over and over and over again the more you try to do that. You could have a community of people, and then one or two people in that community are lost. But if they don't want to be found, if they want to keep, numbing themselves every evening instead of feeling what they're feeling, what can you do about that? You can't. It's up to them to decide one day. And I'm speaking from experience here as someone who also numbed myself. And there was such a long period of time where I thought I was someone who faced things, until I really realized that I wasn't facing things. And no one could help me with that. That's my own realization, whether you're from my community or another community or a passing stranger who happens to see into my soul. It doesn't mean anything unless I'm looking at myself. Because and when it comes to like legacies and breaking generational trauma or curses, you can't undo what anyone's done, and you can't do for someone else. You can only be focused on yourself, because that's how you will impact others. You can always be a helping hand. You can always be a point of contact, but how can you be a point of contact if you're not positioning yourself as that and focusing on yourself to be that? I feel.
I'm not sure if I 100% agree, but
why not? What's your standpoint?
Because I feel like it's great and it's vital to focus on yourself, but I feel like sometimes you've got to pay mind to the community around you.
So what does that look like for you? Sorry, what does that look like for you? Like, when you say focus on the community or pay mind to the community, what does that mean? Just like,
it does come back down to yourself and what you are doing, but there are things that I feel like I intentionally may do to show people another way. Doing
but
things
that's still happening within you.
It is, but I don't need to do it, because the way that if I didn't do it, it wouldn't change anything in my life, if that makes sense. For me personally.
You do it for the fact that it will help the community.
Yes.
Yeah, but that comes from like your ethics and your morals and your values that you've built up. You only do those things outside of yourself because of what you've done for yourself. So it's still a thing of like, first here, and then it overflows, and it's like, I've got enough to give now. But it's never a case of like, oh, I'm gonna give from empty. It's about there's certain stacks that need to happen,
of course,
internally, before automatically you start pouring out. But it's because you have an overflow, not because, oh, I must give to them first. Like, even in the airplane, you put your own mask on before you put someone else's on. That's like a simple law.
Because I also look at it as, to follow on with that, like, giving from a cup that's overflowing. If you're giving from a cup that isn't overflowing, then how valuable is what you're giving? Do you know what I mean?
But say, like, this is just a total different type of example. Say this is more like a goal than a legacy thing, But say you have this goal that I want to be able to make sure that my parents have everything that they want, right? The house, bills paid, everything. And that's your goal. Is that not doing something for someone else from the get-go?
Yeah, but it's a long-term goal. So there are so many things that have to happen in between that require you to bulk up your energy and bulk up your understanding of things. And it's not just to get them to be good and happy. That knowledge benefits you too and goes over into other areas of your life that you don't realize. Oh, I got this knowledge for them, but it's also helping me here. The community is important. I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything. I'm just saying that it's important to start with the self.
Yeah, and I feel like you can't give to your community until you do that. You know, like if that long-term goal is to buy your mum, a house or a car, then you need to be learning about all of that stuff, and you need to be focusing on yourself enough to generate an income to be able to do that, or multiple to be able to do that.
And you're no one's savior. Like there's savior complex. Like no one needs you to save them.
Of course.
They will be okay somehow.
Yeah.
Well done for being the one to like step in and give them what they need, but it would have happened anyway.
I think the most important thing is that I'm learning, because I kind of had to shift my mindset where I was focused on everything I'm doing is for my brothers or my mum or something like that. Like they all need to be happy first. And then it kind of changed to, I actually lost my complete train of thought.
Oh,
wow.
But
I know, that's insane. I was so close to what I was going to say. But what was I going to say? Like,
you've lost it.
yeah.
So I heard you talking about like where it started with like your family and wanting to give to your family first. And did it come back to you? Did it come back to like pouring into yourself?
That's what I was going to say. Thank you. But shifting the mindset from wanting to do all of that and make sure that everyone else is good first. But then I realized you have to allow people to ask for help, you know, and work on yourself enough to be in a position that if someone asks for help, you're able to give it. Because until then, I was that annoying person lecturing everyone to do things the way that I'm doing them because it's helping me. But one, what's helping me might not help another person. And two, you'll just push people away that way and be that annoying person unless they are ready for it and they start asking you to help them. I think leading by example is so heavily underrated. And the more you try to lead by example, I feel the more you'll give or do. And
also, like, we have this thing of, when you're saying people are lost and stuff, it sets this hierarchy when actually everyone definitely has control of their own energy. The amount of control they have is like questionable, but everyone is sovereign over their own energy to be able to learn how to control that. So there shouldn't be this expectation that, oh, let me teach you the right way.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same for everyone. And also it's just like, let people find their own frequency, let them know how they feel. Let them figure out, oh, it feels good when I do this for myself.
No, of course, yeah.
Because if it was just them, what would they do when there's no community to do things for? Would they still do the good for themselves?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like everybody's either lost or been lost at some point in their life, though, because we don't know life, so you're figuring it out.
I just don't. I think me and Cam always do this as well. Like, I'm always like trying to find new words for things.
I respect that though, because I know there's a lot of words that I don't like it, but I don't know any better, so I just use it. But I know within myself that I don't mean it in the way that it's preconceived into the world.
So I could say floating. Some people aren't lost, are floating, or they're like
floating is
still,
a good
or
word.
they're asleep. Asleep is still resting. It's still like, oh, there's stuff going on under the surface.
100%.
But lost says that you're disconnected from the sovereign one. And I don't think anyone's ever really disconnected from God.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
I think
100%.
people,
100%.
and yes, I have been people, can choose to be lost, you know, like choose to feel disconnected. But that doesn't mean you really are. Like the energy is always there to tap into whenever you want to do that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's what I feel. Yeah. Even like a small example today, like I was sitting on the train and I was so distracted. I didn't pray for my day when I was at home. So I was trying to pray and I was like, oh, I can't even pray. Like whatever, who cares? Just leave it. And then I just heard in my head, have you forgotten how to talk to me? You know how to talk to me. Like, you know how to talk to God. And then it was just so easy to pray, but it was so easy in that moment to be like, oh no, I'm disconnected from God that day. But that's not true. Like, you can connect, or not even to God, but to yourself or to a higher spirit or whatever you believe or don't believe in. But stability and groundedness is always there.
It'll be interesting to revisit this topic at some point.
Yeah, a little part 2.
Open door policy to anyone that's been here before as well.
If I can find time.
Of course.
Yes.
That's why I said open door. It's not a strict one. Once you've been here, it's an open door. So cool.
You are always a guest.
But yeah, we've
but
come
we
to
are
that.
the hosts. I'm joking.
Let's not start that. We're at that time of the show.
Yes, we're at that time. So it's time, Adrian, for your word of advice based on everything that we've spoken about.
One word.
One or two.
But not 3. I'm joking, it can be a few.
Live bravely.
That's a great one.
That's a really good one.
I win all.
Now, wait a minute. We need to give our wise words.
Okay,
but tell us about that. Live bravely.
Live bravely. Do you watch This Is Us?
No.
Damn, you don't watch This Is Us. Okay, anyway, let me forget This Is Us. Live bravely, because I feel like life is scary and it's not going to stop being scary anytime soon. And you start the year going, oh yeah, I want to really make the most of this year. I'm going to be top all throughout the year. I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to read every day. I'm going to do all these things every single day. And you don't do that. You get really down sometimes. But there's a bravery in stepping out of your bed when you feel really, really down and going, I'm going to face today. I'm going to go outside even though the sunshine feels like pain. And I'm still going to live and be brave to go on a train, even though I'm scared I might see someone, I have to talk to them and they're going to ask me how I am. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm great. And lie. That's brave. But it's also brave when you can stand up on a stage and tell your story and say, like, this is what I went through and I still go through sometimes. And my life is better for it. Do the scary thing.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one. Darren? What's your word?
No, mine was not as... It's similar, but it wasn't the same. You basically covered what I was going to say. I was going to say just like, be resourceful and like take control. But when I say be resourceful, it's not so much as look for things around you, but look for things within yourself to overcome any situation, any difficulties, any positive moments. Just be resourceful, basically. Like, don't let things that's happened prior to you impact you or make you hide away. Like, show up, be resourceful, find a way to go through it, find a way to deal with things.
I feel that.
So yeah, but
so mine actually did end up being 3 words. So sorry for
Wow.
giving you a hard time, but my words of advice are you have choices. I feel like for me personally, when you're trying to make changes in your life or be different from how generations before you are, sometimes it doesn't feel like you have a choice or like you're always going to be this way because it's in your DNA, it's in your blood. Your mum, your grandma, your great grandma, if they were all like this, why are you not going to be different? But every moment is a choice, like you could choose anything at any time and all of it counts.
yeah.
And anything could be a good choice or a bad choice. Like one day you can make a bad choice, but you end up meeting someone amazing. So just be present in that. Like if you're making a choice, just know that what you're doing is a choice and you have more power than you realize.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking about how you could have said that in 2 words.
What? Make choices.